All right. Well, let's get started. I think we've got 60 participants, so that sounds pretty good. Thank you all for being here. I'm told we need to review Zoom etiquette after intros, so we'll do that now. So please mute yourselves if you are not actually speaking, so that we don't get any feedback. And if you have a question, there should be some pauses built into our presentation for questions, and then there's going to be a large Q&A at the end. Am I correct, Ria?
You're correct.
Okay, so if you would please just hold them for those natural pauses or till the very end, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, and then survey links will be sent around afterward, as Becky is saying, so that you can evaluate us so that we can learn and do better next time. So I'm Keith Ford. I am the president of State Center Federation of Teachers, and I also teach English at FCC. And I've been in the first of those roles for, this is going on my 4th year.
Okay, let me share. Let's get the presentation because it's got your contact information as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I've already screwed up.
You're fine.
No.
All right, there we go.
There we are. And now we can do intros. So that's how you get a hold of me. I can also put my personal cell phone in the chat later on. And so now you know me, Michael.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Taketa. I am starting my first year as the Academic Senate President for Fresno City College. As it shows here, I'm also one of the members of the new Employee Equity Academy team. And I am also in the English department. And I do want to mention one more thing. I happened to, as I was scrolling through the participants, I saw that the Academic Senate President-elect, Tom Burageni, is also here. And so we will be your Academic Senate representation. And so maybe later on I can invite Tom if he has anything to add while I'm talking about Academic Senate. I would invite him to do that. So welcome, everyone.
Right, and I am Rhea Williams. I teach in the English department and work with the union as the VP of Grievance for Fresno City College. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what the grievances are and that process. And I really wanted to kind of come together with Michael and Keith for this presentation, just because I've learned a lot starting as the VP of Grievance. And I think it's important that even as part-timers that you understand what that process is, so we can support you if you run into any issues. So that is me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you'll see, if you hadn't put it together yet, because it's like 8:06, right? The FCC English department is well represented here. So we got you. Okay, so let's jump into the union side. So our union is State Center Federation of Teachers, which is a local affiliate of California Federation of Teachers, which is a state affiliate of the National American Federation of Teachers. Collectively, we represent over 1 million workers. At the state level, we represent about 80,000 workers. And in our local, we represent about 1,800 workers. It's important to know this really quick breakdown. Of the 1,800, about 1,200 are part-time. Let me say that again. About 1,200, that is 2/3 of our membership, 2/3 of the people we represent are part-time. So we're really glad you're here. And it's really important that you recognize that you do have power, you do have a voice, and there are ways to redress grievances. There are ways to get better working conditions for you. So that's a little bit about the union. You can see there as well, our executive director organizer, Inez Zuniga, can be reached at the Gmail address there. Our office, our actual physical in-person office, which we're hoping to get back to regularly soon, is 3 doors down Van Ness, south of Fresno City College. So it's right across the street from the Center for Nonviolence, and right across the street as well from the used bookstore. Stop by anytime. We have masks if you're worried about that. And there's 2 of us in the office, so it's pretty easy to social distance. Okay. So what we do for you, what SCFT does for you, is that we support best practices that enhance student education and success. I want to dwell on that just for a second. The rap on unions is that we tend to be isolated and insular. And what I mean by that is we tend only to care about contracts and only to care about working conditions and things like that. That's not the case with us. How we interact with our institution and how we view ourselves within our institution, within State Center Community College District, is as a vital component of the functioning of the colleges. You cannot do your job well for students if you do not have protected rights. Right? So even though we defend the contract and we defend you as employees, as workers, we also are very, very aware and very cognizant of what our defenses do to protect students and to protect the learning environment for them. So we support faculty interest in the pursuit of student success and a collegiate atmosphere on our campus. That sort of speaks to what I just talked about. We negotiate contracts with the district to provide transparency and benefits for all of our faculty professionals. And we'll get into this a little bit more later on, but as union members, you have input into this area, and as non-members, you do not. So it is important that you sign up and for membership so that you have some input as to what goes into your contract, because SCFT is empowered as the sole representative for negotiations. So in other words, you couldn't go to the district and say, well, I have 2 PhDs, one in astrophysics and one in comparative literature. I think I'm hot shit. And so I need to be paid double what everyone else is paid. It's not how it works. That's called direct bargaining, and it's actually illegal. Okay, so we do this for you. And the way that you make your voice heard is through membership and through general membership meetings and even through visiting executive council meetings. We also represent and advocate for faculty rights, conducive work environments, and opportunities for advancement. We'll get a little bit deeper into this later on, but one of the best examples of opportunities for advancement is in the last contract. We got a guarantee that the topmost senior adjuncts in the applicant pool get an interview. So we guaranteed that some of our people are going to get interviews for these full-time jobs that we all know are rare, but that statistic has borne out. And now we've seen in the last, I think, 3 years since that contract got put into place, 50% of the new hires have been from our adjuncts. So that's an exciting thing. We work with the campus and our community to enhance public education and support of our students and faculty. We're really broadening our reach here, and I'm really excited about this. So pay attention to email, pay attention to text as we go through this semester. We recognize, and I'm going off script, so people might hopefully not freak out, but anyway, we recognize that we serve 2 very distinct tiers of professionals. Full-timers do very well, have good benefits and good protections. A lot of our part-timers have no benefits, no protections, and they're living on poverty wages. I recognize that. And so a lot of our efforts in the past year, especially with the pandemic, have been to address that gap in a lot of different ways, not just with contract negotiations, but by making connections with community organizations and by building support, systemic support from the college, but also from without the college. Okay, next slide, please. That's me. I love these kind of presentations because in real time it always unfolds a little bit differently. Okay, so let me just kind of run through the part-time contract very quickly. So the part-time contract has in it the Federation's rights to public information and employee information that allows us to consult with and support you. So we do have the right to your information. We also protect it very, very aggressively. We do not distribute it to anyone ever, but we will use it to get in touch with you. And one of the things that it's important to remember, and always a struggle as an adjunct, right? I was an adjunct for a long time before I started full time here. It's very hard to get in touch and very hard to stay connected. And so we really, really need that information so that we can keep in touch with you so that you know what's going on. It also outlines the roles and rights of district management, what they can and cannot do. You'd be interested to know there are very few things that they actually have control over. Right of assignment is one, and then defense of administrative regulations is another. Primarily, their obligation is not to you. Their obligation is to the district and to mitigating liability. Reducing liability. That's what their primary obligation is. We also outline your rights to non-discriminatory and safe work environments. These are statutory rights. They almost don't need to be written into the contract, but they are just in case that statutory right changes. Because as you may know, contracts cannot go below the bar of a law, but they can exceed it. And so it is important for us to have those non-discrimination clauses in, just in case they get dialed back by the state or the federal government. They still would exist at that higher level for us. We also outline hours, workload, class sizes. Those things are negotiated again by the union. This includes information on office hours, the academic calendar, and how you get your classes assigned to you. We also have the process and calendar for part-time faculty evaluations. That's really, really important. I believe that's Article 13 of the contract. So if you look at any piece of the contract, which, by the way, can be viewed at our website, which you already saw. If you look at any piece of the contract, look at Article 13, which deals with evaluations, and then you'll also want to look at Article, I believe, 15, which is grievance, which Ria is going to go over. Your rights to transparency in regards to your personnel records. You have a right to be able to go and request your file at any point from your dean or from the district office. Anything that goes into your permanent record is subject to your viewing. You can take a look at it at any time. Also, anything that is in your permanent record, you have the right to respond to in certain timelines. It's also important to know when you can do that and how. Conditions for leave, that's time off of work. You might be interested to know there's a gap in the contracts. So there is a thing called the catastrophic leave bank. Okay, let's say that, heaven forbid, but let's say that you are beset with a very serious illness and you are removed from work for a while. Every member has the opportunity to contribute to the catastrophic leave bank, to give sick leave hours or sick leave days to a bank. And then if something happens to you, you get to draw from that. Now here's the gap. In the full-time contract, there is language that specifically forbids taking time off for stress. So let's say that because of COVID, because of the pandemic, you have a legitimate nervous breakdown. If you're a full-timer, you don't get to use the catastrophic leave bank. But that language does not exist in the part-time contract. So feel free to have a nervous breakdown if you want. The next thing that it also outlines are the procedures for grievances. Grievances, and Rio go more into this, are very, very important. They're also very, very structured and very, very clearly delineated what is a grievance and what is not. Again, Rio will go more into this, but all I will say is you need to follow the timelines, because if you don't, that is the chief way that the district will invalidate a grievance. Okay, and then last, compensation, salary, additional payments, and tax information. A lot of you probably saw the email earlier. I think it was in the middle of July. We actually got a 5% raise, and that is the biggest COLA increase that we've gotten in the last 13 years. So we're very excited about that. And just to give you an idea, and not to toot my own horn or toot the chief negotiator's horn for him, that was a negotiation over the summer when most of us were off, and there was already language in an MOU that said that the district didn't have to listen to us, and we still got in front of them and we still advocated on your behalf. So we are always working toward better benefits and better pay for everybody. Okay, next slide, please. So notable points. Your job offer, the thing that you sign each semester, usually comes from your dean, is not your contract. Okay, Your contract is the large long-form document. It's about 67 pages long, and that is negotiated by SCFT. That's found on our website. Okay, that is the actual contract. This is important to know because people seem to think that if they sign the job offer, that it's binding. It's not. It's not. As some of us have learned by hard experience, the dean can take that away, right? They can reassign your class to a full-timer. They can just cancel the class. They can move it around, whatever they want to do. That is not a binding agreement in any way, okay? So it is important to recognize when we talk about contract, we're talking about the long-form agreement that is found on the website that we negotiate. Also, seniority is not a thing. Okay, there is a negotiated process for class assignments between full-time and part-time faculty. It has to do with comparable load. And the only way that seniority figures in with adjuncts, with part-timers, is once you, when you are in the process of your first 3 years, your first 6 semesters, you are, let's say, less protected than you are after you pass that 6th semester. After you pass that 6th semester, you have right of assignment and right of comparable load, which means you're going to be assigned the same, you have the right to be assigned the same amount of units matching semester to matching semester. So fall to fall, spring to spring. So let's say you taught 10 units average in fall, 7 units average in spring for those first 3 years. You're going to get 10 in the fall, 7 in the spring. We've had some good luck with this, and we've built some really good relationships specifically here at FCC. We have essentially managed to guarantee comparable load even for people who are in only their 2nd year. So if you have an issue, reach out to Rhea, reach out to me, and we can intercede on your behalf, even if it's not written in the contract. This is important to know. Even if you're not sure, reach out to Rhea, reach out to me, and we can try to help you, okay? Relationships often exceed the bounds of contracts, and we can do what we need, okay? Full-time faculty are not your bosses, regardless of what they may claim, okay? Your manager is your dean, and there's a slight nebulous area when we're talking about coordinators who may be full-time faculty. They still are not allowed to discipline you. They still are not allowed to decide the schedule for you without consultation with an administrator. Okay, if you run into problems with a full-time faculty member, hopefully you don't, right? Because that's a little awkward. That's like mom and dad fighting at the dinner table. But if you do, reach out to us and we will help you. Next slide, please. Okay, evaluations. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this, I just want to point out that we are working on another MOU for the evaluations, specifically for adjuncts who have achieved comparable load, who have achieved rehire preference, so that you can go through the same sorts of evaluation procedures as a tenured full-timer. And you would have basically just a collegial discussion with your evaluator instead of the more invasive processes. We did that last year, and we're trying to revive that MOU. Should have it soon, or at least we'll have a good answer soon. So evaluations are meant to improve the quality of instruction. They are not meant to be personally punitive. This is important. They're meant to make us better. Okay, we are evaluated on the positions that we hold and the duties outlined for those positions. You cannot be evaluated. This is an interesting point. Your duties are lined out in the contract for instructional faculty, for librarians, coaches, coordinators, everybody, counselors, all of you. They're lined out there, and you cannot be evaluated on anything that is not in the contract. College administration is responsible for the evaluation process, not you. You do not have to reach out to an evaluator. And the evaluations will occur between the 6th week of the semester and the 13th. And they have to be wrapped up between those 2 days, or between those windows. Sorry, in that window. I can talk. If they're not, this is a really good example of a grievance. This is a really good example of a grievance. If somebody tries to evaluate you in week 2 and you get a bad evaluation because you're not ready and you haven't gotten your classroom dynamic under control yet, Or if they try to evaluate you in week 14 when all you're doing is studying workshop sessions and there's not much substance to evaluate, they cannot do that, and we can grieve that. Your evaluator in-class visits will be made part of the evaluation. So when we're on campus, when we're face-to-face, you're going to have a visit. Student evaluations are also going to be handed out during that time. These are standardized by the district, but they're also they also get input from us, and those are handed out during the in-class observation. There's a digital equivalent to this for online classes right now. Your evaluator should discuss your evaluation with you. If you have not been made aware of this protocol, you can request the discussion. I'm going to amend that. You must request discussion, okay? The only way that you're going to get the improvement part of being evaluated is to talk to the person who evaluated you. Also, if you get a good evaluation, right, that's the perfect time to ask for a letter of recommendation, right? I assume that everybody here wants a full-time position. That's how you work it. That's how you work it. Don't be afraid to be a little bit of a pest here, okay? This is the faculty, the full-time faculty's obligation. This is the dean's obligation to discuss the evaluation with you. Okay, they are obligated to do that. And then all evaluations must be reviewed and authorized by a supervisor. So all your evaluations will go to your dean or director for review. Usually that doesn't mean much, but it's also a good time for you to circle back and ask for a letter of recommendation from your dean or director. Okay. I think that might be it for me. Nope, okay. So unit members are going to be evaluated at least as follows. You're going to be evaluated on your performance during the first semester of teaching, teaching or service by a team consisting of an immediate supervisor or their designee and or a peer reviewing the identified by the department chair. So you will have your immediate supervisor, usually a dean or director, or someone else that they push that duty off onto, and a full-time faculty member reviewing you in your first semester. And your performance during your second and third semester, it's also going to be pretty much the same thing. So you'll have 2 evaluations. Then after that, your performance at least once every 6 semesters of teaching and service is going to be reviewed again 2 times. Okay, it's okay. So then more frequent evaluation here. Now here's something that is upsetting to people, and we've gotten some pushback on. More frequent evaluation can occur in the event the job performance is less than acceptable as determined by the immediate supervisor. So let's say that you get a bad evaluation this fall. Hope that it doesn't happen, but let's say that it does. Well, your normal evaluation would be fall then fall. You get evaluated once a year. It's more for workload for the deans. But if you get a bad evaluation, not only should you reach out to us so that we can help you get a good evaluation the next time, you should expect to be evaluated in the spring. And it is the administration's right to do that. Further, it is the administration's right to evaluate you again in the same semester, as long as it's within that evaluation window, that 6-week to 13th week evaluation window. You will be notified, right? They cannot catch you off guard. Okay, they can't just pop in and say, "Oh, you're being evaluated today." They cannot do that. You will be notified, so you have time to prepare. But it is important to know they do have the right to do this. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I think this will be the handoff to you, Ria. Okay, so any violation in the evaluation procedure is grievable. Okay, in the procedure. However, the substance of an evaluation is not grievable. I'm going to go off script again here and just say there's no particular rule in the contract against your supervisor being a dick. Okay, if they say something mean in their evaluation that you don't like, that's hard to grieve. However, if they evaluate you on something that they shouldn't have, if they evaluate you outside of the time that they should have, if they evaluated you on a duty that you have not been clearly trained on or given, those things are all very, very grievable and very easy for us to attack and very easy for us to help you with. Okay, I think now, handoff.
It is. So let me click over. So I just want to make the point that it's really important. I know I didn't look at all the contracts that I had as a part-timer, even when I first got started as a full-timer, but it's important because I think, I don't want to say a lot, but some of those instances where maybe you have an issue with a supervisor or an immediate peer evaluator, it's important to know the process. So if somebody's giving you any grief, to make sure that they're at least doing it within the time frame and following the protocols, because they might slip up on those, and then you've got something that you can come and talk to me about. So I am VP of Grievance for Fresno City College. Each of the different colleges has a different VP, and we meet up during the semester to address grievances at all the campuses and discuss kind of how we'll help support our unit members. So that's my job. If you've got any questions related to the contract or grievance, you've got reps and you've got me, Keith, Bernadette's on, I know, in the meeting. So there are folks around that are here to help you. I think that's important to know. Okay. Pardon me. So grievance is basically a formal written allegation by the grievant. So this can be something that you bring up, or it can be something if you're responding to any disciplinary measures that might come to you from a supervisor. You have the right to be represented. So I know when I first started full-time, I had a small little grievance issue, and I had signed up for the union and didn't even know. And Inez, our director, reached out to me. So I didn't know how immediate representation would be. And I ended up, I told her, no, I think I got it. I can handle it in the meeting on my own. But it was just really nice to have somebody that's like, hey, if you need representation, if you need somebody to explain anything that's in this letter or anything about the grievance process, you've got representation here. And this is really important for our part-time faculty. You're the majority of our faculty, and you've got so much stuff going on. I know a lot of part-time faculty work at other campuses, you have family, you have kids. So it's important to know the process so that when something jams you up, you know who to come to and how that process works. So yes, you can talk to any of your union reps. They'll connect you to me or to Keith. We normally kind of tag team things, so we share emails on most of the grievances. And you're also entitled to meet free of charge if you're a union member with our attorney. So whether it's something in the grievance process through the contract, or maybe an issue that you're having with HR, anything that you're trying to negotiate with the district, that's what we're here for. So the last part is important. I don't want to say a lot of times, I do that a lot. But sometimes there have been some grievances that have come to me, even as a new rep, that were really kind of more about the work environment or about treatment. And that's kind of an HR issue. So that's something that we can kind of guide you to the resources, but that would be something that you would negotiate with the district. That's just between them. So that's an HR district issue. So we're only involved, actively involved, I'll say, in issues that are grieving the contract. So that's why it's important to know. If you have any questions, I get a handful of emails every semester that somebody's just asking me for something that I can click over to the contract and look up really quick. And I don't mind doing that for you, but it's important to know where you can find that contract and know where you can find the clarifying points that you might need in a situation. So as Keith was saying, the timeline is really important. And this is because if there's any misstep on the timeline, and this is set up, sorry, that's my email. And it's set up so that we can get through any grievances in a timely manner, so nothing drags on. So if there is, and we'll go over the steps in just a second, if there is a step that you're out of that timeline, that can be reason for the district to reject that grievance. If there's any issue with the district or your supervisors responding to you through that timeline, that can move you forward in the grievance process. So it's really important to know those timelines, and those are outlined in the contract as well. Okay. So the levels here, I really think it's important to know that from the instance that you think you have a grievance, you do have some time to kind of put together how you want to approach a situation. So this would be time that you can contact me or Keith. This is what I'm going through. How do you guys think I should approach it? Before talking to your immediate supervisor, who's got 5 days to give you an oral response. And then from there, we get on to written responses. So that would be your academic grievance form. And then we get into responses in writing. If there's any issues between you and your immediate supervisor, that would go up to the college president. And she's got certain times that she can respond in. And then if we have issues at that administration level, that can be something that ends up going to the chancellor. I don't know, Keith, do you know how often we have grievances that go into arbitration?
Not very often. I
Right.
think I've seen 3.
Okay.
Yeah, no, 2 actually. We usually head that off before arbitration. The district does not like that.
Yeah.
It looks bad for them, and their legal fees are a lot more hefty than ours are.
Oh, yes. And Keith's reminder in the chat. So all the dates, the timelines are working days. So they're not calendar days. And I know I was just, I think, dealing with somebody that was confused on that. I was like, you have a lot more time than you think. It's on each day of the week. So yeah, most of the grievances that I've been involved in are settled normally at that supervisory level. I haven't been in any grievances, I'm new, but I haven't been in any grievances that involve President Goldsmith. I know Keith's got a working relationship with Carol, so we do keep those lines of communication open and are familiar with the folks that we work through the grievance process with. So I just want to make sure that people are clear on the timeline and the levels, because those are things that are really important to keep track of once you file a grievance, or if you're addressing a grievance, like Keith said. Anything that you get disciplinarily can be responded to, and that all goes into your personnel file. I know I've helped one person that wanted to make sure that all her responses were in the file. So that's something to make sure that anytime that you get action from an administrator or supervisor, that you have the opportunity to respond to that in a way that you think is sufficient. Okay, I'm just checking the chat. Okay, so we'll have some time for questions later in terms of grievance or contract, but I'm going to turn it over to Michael Takeda for some academic senate information, 10+1.
Yes, so now we're going to shift a little bit, and we're going to talk about how the Academic Senate functions on the campus and within the district. So the Academic Senate is an organization whose primary function is to make recommendations, policy recommendations, with respect to academic and professional matters. Now, as you can see here, these academic professional matters encompass what we call the 10+1. You'll see the 10 are fairly clear. I mean, they're broad. Like if you think of curriculum as quite a broad topic, but the +1 is because you see that that's sort of this nebulous other, and those are the matters that are agreed upon between the Academic Senate or Senates and the governing board itself. So when there are issues that involve any of these items that you see here, for example, curriculum, right, degree and certificates, grading policies, the development of educational programs on campuses, standards or policies regarding student preparation and success, district and college governance structures as they relate to faculty roles in them, the faculty roles in the accreditation processes, policies for faculty professional development activities, like, for example, Flex Day is a great example of that. Process for the program review. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to go through the program review process. But if you do ever get a chance to do that within your program, within your department, it's very, very, very enlightening. You learn a lot about the way your program operates and the way the programs operate within the larger structure of the institution. And so it is a good way to learn more about both your program and the college. And then the processes for institutional planning and budget development. So So beyond, these 10+1, what we deal with then, and the way we then operate within the institution, but then also within the district and then with the Board of Trustees, is a process of collegial consultation. So what that means, there are kind of two ways that we consult collegially with that the board and the district consult collegially with the academic senates of each of the colleges. The first way is to rely primarily upon the advice and judgment of the academic senate, right? So when it comes to these academic and professional matters, in many cases, the Board of Trustees relies primarily upon what we decide in the academic senate. So that's where we hold a lot of our power, is that it is incumbent upon the district and the board to consult with us and then to rely upon that advice. The other is that the governing board or its designees and the academic senate shall reach mutual agreement by written resolution, regulation, or policy of the governing board effectuating such recommendations. So again, a lot of the business of the academic senate is actually to review administrative regulations, most of the ones that fall then within academic matters. We also look at board policies, although the board does not have to rely upon or consult collegially actually with us regarding the board policies, but those are usually fairly broad and not outlined in as much detail as the administrative regulations. One last thing I want to add is if there are any adjuncts, part-timers who would like to participate on Senate, please, yes, so all faculty are encouraged to attend academic Senate meetings, but if you want to officially be the official senator for your department, please speak to your department chair and or dean and check with them about how you might be able to do that. Because if you are the official Senate representative for your department, you can be paid for attending Senate meetings, and then also any subcommittee or work group or task force meetings that are associated with that Senate assignment. At the moment, I'm not sure, and maybe Tom in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure that we have any adjuncts serving as the official Senate representatives for their departments, but again, oftentimes adjuncts don't know that they can do that, nor do they know that they can be paid to do that. So if you are interested in doing that, of course, you can just come to meetings. The meetings are open to the public, so anyone really can come to the meetings if you're more interested. And really, I know Senate sometimes seems like a scary place. It's really not, but one of the great things about Senate is that I think from anybody who's served on Senate before, you have the opportunity to learn a lot more about the college than you ever knew. And so I welcome you again to any of our meetings.
So this is basically just to say that between the union and the academic senate, there is representation for you. There is space for you to bring your ideas, to bring any issues that you're experiencing, and to be heard. That's kind of why we wanted to put this presentation together. So a couple of adjunct resources, and Michael and Keith, feel free to jump in here. These are just some things that in my past experience, I think kind of are important to remember. So I know it can be hard, especially if you're working on multiple campuses, but your other full-time faculty are really great resources. When I was a part-timer, these were faculty members that I could count on to pass on professional development opportunities or forward emails to me, things that maybe I missed in an email or things that maybe were coming from a dean that I didn't open in email. So my full-time faculty were people that I exchanged lesson plans with, got updates, if I had questions on things. So hopefully you know a handful of full-time faculty in your department. Those are faculty that are often doing evaluations for you. So as Keith said, in terms of collecting those letters of recommendation. Attempt to attend opening day meetings, you get paid for them, and there's important information. So things about when your census dates are, how we're dealing with COVID restrictions, how to deal with ad codes and dropping students, disciplinary issues. A lot of that stuff is going to be available via email. You can find it if you, like our division has a campus page, but it's just much easier and more immediate, and you get paid if you go to something like a flex day or convocation. So if you can't attend, make sure that you know your department chairs. They're your liaison between faculty and your chair or your dean. Keep an eye out for any last minute calls. I know an email just came from our secretary in our office. There were some, I think maybe 5 or 6 sections of a 1A class that needed staffing. So those come through once we get past extreme registration and get just into that week before the first week. So look for those emails in case you've got any time to take up an extra class, especially if you're online certified. Okay.
Leah, could I
yeah.
speak really quickly to that second point?
Sure.
The pay for meetings. So there are also other professional development opportunities that are occasionally available to adjuncts for pay. We don't have definitive confirmation on this, but I think the Cora trainings are also, are they? Okay. So there's another set of trainings for which you can be paid, and you can do the work. I think it's 30 days at a time for each segment. And what is it, $500 in total or $500 per segment?
I thought it was $500 total.
Okay. So either way, there's money available there, and these professional development opportunities, obviously they look good on your CV, right? They look good on your resume, they look good on an application letter, in addition to giving you that extra money. Okay, sorry.
And I see your question, Aaron, and I'm gonna get to that just after this last resources slide. So the second one here, so that's basically what Keith just said, looking out for those paid professional development. If somebody shoots an email or you hear something and you're not sure if you can get paid for it, feel free to email me or any of the union reps, and we'll let you know. And Aaron's question that we'll get to is basically what kind of paperwork do you go through when you're getting paid for these? So we'll hit that in just a second, which is knowing your forms. There's a lot of things in terms of ad forms, in terms of reinstatement. If you're giving incomplete, those forms should be, at least in our division office, they're in the office. We've got our secretary there, our dean that kind of helped explain those to you. This also is where getting to know full-time faculty and your department chairs helps. They'll help you find things that you need so you don't have to look for those and explain how to fill those out, especially if you're doing travel and conference. I know that was a jam for me the first time I filled out all that paperwork. So just make sure that you ask questions. Check out the Canvas Commons. Some of the stuff that I've learned, and this is just as a full-timer in like my last 3 years, is not to reinvent the wheel. There's so much stuff that I can exchange with my colleagues, that I can find through comments, that I can find online, where I can do little tweaks to make things personal to me. But lesson plans, breaking down readings, all sorts of materials are available to help you save some time, especially if you're using OER materials, so open educational resources. There's a whole list of those all over the place, so know that. Okay. Visit your division offices. There's a lot of resources. I was just talking to Michael about this before we started. As an adjunct, there's a lot of stuff that I pay for, printer paper, things that I just went out and got on my own that are available in your division office that are there for you. You have just as much right to them as a full-time faculty member. So if you need anything tech related or any office supplies, check with somebody in your division office before you go out paying for those. As Keith said, make sure that you review and discuss your evaluation seriously. Invest in that conversation. That's where you can ask questions, make suggestions about the process or anything that maybe you're noticing in your division. You're making those suggestions to a peer faculty member, and that's something that's going to be reviewed by your supervisor. And just to get any clarification, I've had to had that conversation with some part-timers that I've done evaluations for. They were like, nope, it looks good. That's fine. I was like, nope, let's sit down so that we can actually talk about what is in the evaluation and to give them an opportunity. There's some questions that maybe they don't know they have when they're reading through the material that'll come up in a conversation. So make sure that you're having that conversation, whether or not your peer evaluator makes that a priority. That should be a priority for you. And then look into opportunities where you can share your knowledge. We all have a wealth of teaching experience and knowledge. And so if there's an opportunity for you to put together a flex day presentation or to do something maybe in your department or division that you can get paid for, it helps to look into that. I know I appreciate any information and resources that I get as a full-timer, regardless of where they come from. So if that's an opportunity that you can have, look into that. So Keith, I think, yes, before we get to the Adjunct Academy, can you talk to us briefly about how they fill out timesheets to get paid for today's other professional development?
So there should actually be no need to fill out anything. If you've registered for this Flex Day presentation, Susie Nitzel is keeping track of that, and you'll get paid. That gets forwarded to your division dean, and it's all handled already. So if you're registered, you're good. If you're not, then you're going to want to contact your division dean and get a magic form for the Flex Day, and you can actually refer to it as a magic form. But you should be fine if you registered for the presentation. That's how Flex Day, at least in the digital world, that's how it's been working lately. So,
is it the same for professional development later on in the semesters?
No. Professional development later on in the semester is going to be more idiosyncratic. So you'll have to clear that with your dean each time to see if it requires a magic form. In the case of the Cora trainings, yes, we are at Hogwarts. In the case of the Cora trainings, I think when you complete one of those, they send proof of completion to, I believe, to Don Lopez, the Vice President of Instruction, and then he handles payment. So it depends on the opportunity, but it's good to always consult your dean.
Okay. So Michael, you want to talk to us about the Adjunct Academy?
Yes, so the Adjunct Academy, this is very exciting. Actually, this is something that I have been working with VPI Lopez on for quite some time. It's actually a project that we had talked about starting quite maybe, gosh, a year and a half ago, but then pandemic, and so we weren't able to actuate this this idea. But now that we're starting to move back and we're starting to shift back, this is one of the focuses of the one of the academic Senate task forces this upcoming year. Is the development of an adjunct academy. So just as a kind of quick briefer. So Ria and I actually were having a conversation this morning about this presentation. And she told me something about some kind of, I still don't understand it, but some sort of like these tax implications for working multiple jobs and how, you know, you can translate that into some sort of a tax reduction. I never knew that. You know, I was a full-time adjunct for a long time, and I never knew that, and that would have been a way to save me some money. So the reason I bring that up is that you know, a lot of these resources that Rhea and Keith were just sharing, you know, many of these are sort of these ad hoc things that happen, or you know, these things that we're suggesting you do kind of on the spot. But what we'd really like to do is have an institutionalized way to house all of the resources that adjunct faculty might need, and to be able to house it in a place where adjunct faculty can come and they'll always know where, you know, they can find out about professional development opportunities, or they can find out about ways that they can contribute and hopefully get paid for their contributions. A lot of, you know, workshops, for example, you know, Keith was talking about Cora, which is really, I mean, if you have the time to do that, definitely take advantage of it. Not only because you can be compensated for your time for that, but also because I think anyone who takes goes through the choral workshop will find it extremely beneficial and helpful, and potentially completely change the way that you approach your classes and your students and your teaching. So so things like that, like different teaching workshop opportunities, mentorship. Again, mentorship is not handled in a standardized way across the institution, and perhaps it should be. And perhaps there should be an institutional mechanism for the way that we handle mentorship. Another thing that I think would be very important, and again, some of these are just some of my ideas coming from when I was an adjunct, would be things like hiring workshops and application workshops. For some adjuncts who might be applying for full-time positions for the first time, or even if you're not, right? There are a lot of workshops, for example, that could be like for interview skills or interviewing, or any questions that you might have about that process that can help you be more effective in it. And so finally, I'd say, and so much more, because what I'd like to do, we don't have too much more time, so maybe only for about 5 minutes, but then I'm going to leave. Let me link this here. I'm going to leave this Jamboard open just kind of indefinitely. So please feel free to add any of your ideas. If you, in the chat, I included a link to, so I see a comment about not paying for Quora. I will ask about that and see if I can get some more information about that. So sorry, I included a link in the chat to a Jamboard. Hopefully, you are familiar with using it. Again, we're kind of running out of time, and so but I do want you to have the opportunity to share some of your ideas. So please go to that Jamboard. If you've never used it before, on the left-hand side, underneath the arrow sort of circle button thing, you'll see a place for a sticky note. If you click on that, you can enter any of your ideas for the Adjunct Academy in there.
I'm going to see if I can share it real quick, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. So it'll look like this.
Yes,
and then the sticky notes are here.
Right. So sticky notes, click on that, add any of your ideas. And so we'll just take a few minutes. Please add some ideas, and then you can place them, or I can kind of move them as well. I'll kind of move them around. So please, we want this to be interactive. I know we've been talking at you a lot, and so this would be a chance to kind of be a little bit interactive and to get some of your ideas and what should we include in the Adjunct Academy as we work to develop that over the next year. So great. Hiring interview preparation workshops, I think, would be a great idea.
Yeah. And look out for those. I know after I got hired full-time, some colleagues that the year after we got hired, we did a hiring flex day, because that's a huge, and that was very well attended.
Yeah, and we actually did a workshop on how to prepare for interviews and to get to an interview last spring. That was also very well attended. We'll be doing that again. And that was,
and we've got student loan debt clinics the union puts on, clinics for applying for unemployment when you're in between semesters. And just to follow up on the little bit that I was talking to Michael about. So a year after I got hired, I was actually doing it was a tax preparation panel for Black History Month. And so we had a guy from H&R Block that was coming in and talking about how to take deductions from your salary when you have multiple jobs. And so that was something that I did not know about as an adjunct that could have saved me on my tax dollars. So that might be something that we could certainly work into an Adjunct Academy, somebody to come and talk about how you do taxes. I paid so much money in taxes. But I wanted to make sure that we go over just a couple more resources from SCFT. We have a part-time adjunct committee. So I know Bernadette's on the call. You can contact her. This is a committee that is just of part-time members, and they're focusing on listening to part-time issues and advocating for those. That's a subcommittee of our executive council. So they bring actionable items to us to vote on. So if you're interested in joining that or getting information, you can contact Jackie Alvarez or Bernadette Mordigian. And then we also have an adjunct relief fund that we started due to the impact of COVID on part-time faculty members. So to date, we've raised just a little over $24,000 in donations. I know Keith went and did a little, what was it for Casey? Was it the Fresno?
One of the TV stations.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a
but they're
time where I was everywhere.
plug for it. So, you know, these are little things that I think as full-timers, if we come up with ideas and ways that we can support you, we try to, but I really love that we have that adjunct committee, and we encourage you guys to become members of SCFT so we get more of that feedback, work with Senate so that we can do what we can to support you. So with that in mind, I guess we've got about 10 minutes. We could do a little Q&A for.
There we go. And I'll make a real quick math-based plug for membership one more time. And those of you who have been in orientations with me before are probably getting tired of hearing this, but it's true. Our full-timers, as I said, get paid well. There are 72 community college districts up and down the state of California, and we rank consistently right in the middle, 25th to 30th, depending on experience and educational level. 25th to 30th out of 72. Full-time membership with the union is 93%. Okay. Part-timers consistently rank out of 72 colleges or 72 community college districts statewide at 67th. All the way at the bottom almost. Membership for part-timers is right around 50%. There is a direct correlation between membership and the amount of benefits and the positivity of pay and improvements that we can get. You need to join in order for us to have the power to execute what we want to do for you. Okay, now Q&A.
So any questions regarding evaluations, the contract? Senate.
Feel free to speak up. You don't have to use the chat.
Explain how to join
I
the union.
actually have a question about content ownership, especially since we switched to teaching online. I teach in the business department, so I had to develop a lot of content specifically for online delivery, and the scope of work is quite different than delivering in class and lecturing in class, and then, you know, the kind of work that you do outside of actually grading and everything else that you do during the semester. Who owns that content, and you know, what do we have regarding compensation when it comes to online teaching, because it is quite different in terms of the content that you have to develop and the technical stuff that you have to develop. And additionally, what responsibility does full-time faculty have to us in terms of giving us the content to begin with? I'm fairly new. This is my third semester, and the first one was like during COVID, so everything sort of, you know, it was crazy. But how much can we expect to receive? I received nothing. I had to develop literally from scratch. I was surprised that that was the case. Is that normally the case? Is that just this particular course? And what responsibility do they have to us when we're given a course, or we're offered a course? Thank you.
It's really great questions, and unfortunately the answers are going to make you as angry as we are. Part-time faculty are not paid for prep in any way. You are paid by unit as though it were by hours. So if you are teaching 10 units online or in person, that is 10 hours a week that you get paid for, because that's the 10 hours that you are supposedly in front of your class. It's absurd that you don't get paid for prep, and that's one of the biggest things that we're going to be negotiating around this coming fall, so that we can get pay for prep for our part-time faculty.
Especially for online delivery, because it is quite different, because the course then is a
is.
standalone course that almost, you know, anybody can be plugged in to teach it if you did a good job. And so
Right.
you develop all this content for nothing. I come from the private sector, not from the public sector. So it's just shocking to me that, you know, I mean, at Walmart, you would never be asked to come in and do stuff, you know, outside of your hours, right, to prep. And yet in this space we are. So if that's something that isn't already on the table in terms of negotiation. I think it should be, especially as we move to teaching more online and there's more and more content that now doesn't belong to us, I assume. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know who owns the content that we develop. Can I take it somewhere else and teach it, elsewhere?
Right. So to answer that question, and well, let me deal with the pay for prep first. Online or otherwise, you should be paid for prep, and we are definitely going to be fighting for that in the next contract. I promise you that. That is one of our highest priorities. With respect to intellectual property, this is another issue with the contracts. In the full-time contract, there is an article, I think it's Article 23, specifically about intellectual property and what counts as the faculty members' property. That article doesn't even exist in the part-time contract. It's just not there. Now, there are statutory laws about intellectual property that are pretty clear about, let's say that you teach the class here and then you want to teach at COS. You can take the shell. No one's going to stop you. But by turns, by the same token, there's nothing in our contract and there's nothing specifically to protect you from the district going, oh, I like that shell, I'm going to give it to someone else to use. So we're also going to be changing that in the next contract.
Which is different than in-person teaching, wouldn't you agree? I mean, somebody has to be willing to share that with you, whereas online you lose that freedom to not share it, let's say, because you spend so many hours developing. Is that not the case? I mean, again, I'm fairly new to this.
No, you're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it would be very difficult to take content from somebody face to face, right?
Right.
So,
right.
I mean,
They have to be willing
like
to
a
share.
forget me stick, right? Just, yeah.
Hey,
Right.
Keith, I wonder, I have a question about that myself. I don't know if my audio is working.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I really appreciate this concept of intellectual property rights. And so I thought of creating my content on non-district equipment using non-district software, setting it up as my own system, giving myself access to it. So then if I had a shell that was calling out to my system and it was being called by me, it wouldn't be accessible to anyone else.
That would be great, except that there are provisions in the contract that require you to use a designated learning management system. So you do have to use Canvas in some fashion.
But I call out now, I call out to subscription only services now that if you don't have through Canvas, certainly, but they're deposited into Canvas externally. So therefore you have to have a subscription to them. I happen to have a subscription.
Are you paying for that subscription?
You bet I am. I'm paying myself.
Right, but so I understand why you're doing that, but there's no method for you to be reimbursed for something like that.
It's my own system is what
use
I'm
that
saying.
as your. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying I worry that you're spending more money and more effort than you necessarily need to. If it's important to you, go ahead and just make sure that you are in compliance with the learning management system.
Yes.
Requirements, but I would hate to see you spend more money and more time on prep than you need to. This is speaking to an overarching issue with adjunct rights and benefits. If you're not properly compensated and you're not properly cared for, and we don't think you are, right? There's a long way to go toward parity and equity. How in the hell can you properly teach? How in the hell can you properly do your job? Right. And just for another little statistic, right? Y'all teach 58% of the classes. 58%. So more than half of the classes are taught by part-timers. So it's your working conditions directly impact student success.
And I just want to add on is that this is also a place where you can look to full-time faculty in your department chairs. I know at least in the English department, we have full-time faculty that are trying to put together like some basic Canvas shells for our adjuncts. So you've got direction, you've got, some basics of how to set things up to save you time on prep. So this could be something that you can look to other full-time members for, or something that perhaps department chairs or somebody in the division might be working on. We're putting those through Canvas, but I'm not sure if other divisions are doing it that way.
Now, I should fully disclose I'm here in this meeting today for the benefit of my part-time instructors. I am a tenure instructor here in my program, but I want to make sure that I provide my part-timers with every opportunity to get every benefit they're entitled to.
Right.
And
Oh, there's a disadvantage to not being able to see you. That's Rob, isn't it?
Mhm.
yeah,
Thought I recognized the voice. Good to have you here, Rob.
thank you. And I'm so glad to see that the institution is validating the contributions of adjuncts by giving the opportunity for those full-time interviews. It's so refreshing to see hiring from within. It really gets to me when I see people come in from the outside that don't know our culture.
Mhm.
They're going to move to Fresno for a job that somebody has essentially been doing already.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Keith, Darcy had a question about how much time faculty are kind of being expected to spend in terms of cleaning up classroom space.
Less than 5 minutes. Yeah, so you are, that's a really good question. We're going to have another workshop later today on COVID safety in the classroom, where we actually, we stole Darren Cousineau away from the district for a minute to present to us. But no more than a couple of minutes. You are only responsible for your workstation. That's it. You do not need to be cleaning desks. You do not need to be swabbing doorknobs or anything like that. Just a quick wipe down of the workstation that you were at. So, usually our little lectern and computer area. That's it. Students can be asked to clean up their desks as well. But right now what we have is any classroom that is being taught in actively, I believe is going to be cleaned at least once daily, if not twice. So I think at night and then in between classes at some point during the day. Bernadette, did you want to hop in? Did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say when we're talking about wouldn't it be nice for grading and prep, it is my primary focus and I really want to get everybody organized and excited. And really as we look at negotiating on our contract, about anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 is not compensated each month on your paycheck, depending on how many classes you teach and how long you've been there. $2,000 to $4,000 extra dollars you are missing. And this isn't just each month on how much you're getting paid. Think about it when you're applying for a car loan, a home loan. I had to, when I was getting this apartment, the landlords looked and they said, you only work 9 hours a week. And we know that that is not true. It has a huge impact on us financially. So the district says that they're equitable. And that is just simply not an equitable practice if we are doing things in our job description and not getting paid for it. The person who spoke earlier is absolutely correct. I've never worked at a statewide institution or a mom and pop show place where I worked for 15 hours a week extra and did not get paid for it. It adds up. So please join us and get organized. Fill out those surveys because we need that data and we need your support as we move forward. This is the only way it's really going to happen is your support.
I was just about to say that, Keith.
To Bernadette's point, one way that we can, one way that we're able to be compensated for our work is to be able to monetize the content that we created.
Right.
On other platforms, there's lots of third-party platforms now where you can set up a course and sell it outside of the district. And that was the point of my question, is I'd like to understand if I have the right to do so, if I own the content that I created. Understand it won't be in Canvas, which is the tool that we use for the institution, but everything that was written and designed and all the imagery and everything else, was created by me and I was not compensated for it. So what happens to that? Can I remove it and go sell it somewhere else? That's what I was trying to understand. And yeah, okay.
No, you cannot.
Troubling.
It is troubling. So until we get the intellectual property rights written into your contract, everything technically that you do is falls under work for hire. So you're being paid to generate that, even if you're being paid a pittance, right? Even if you're not being paid well at all, it still qualifies as work for hire. I would be I can look into it to get the specific legal implications, but I would really, really strongly caution against doing that. That's dangerous.
Well, that's why I brought up the question, because we were not compensated for developing that. I was compensated for 3 hours a week delivering and grading.
I understand.
All the graphics, all the writing, everything else, you know,
Right.
I was not compensated for. So therefore, is it still within that? But I understand what you're saying about being cautious, and that's the reason I brought up the question.
No,
And that's
as we
something I
move
think should be addressed.
as we move forward with trying to get equity, you know, we want the treatment and the pay that a full-timer has. That would be part of it. It's 7 hours each week that they're spending on grading, I believe, and also having office hours, which, you know, that was another huge blow if you attended the adjunct workshop and finding out that we are struggling to get that. We want to be treated equally for the work that we do. And the resources that we are for students and how important it is for their success. So let us know if you have any other questions.
And these are things I would point out, things that hopefully you keep contributing to the Jamboard, but certainly questions that we're looking into currently. Look for your email updates from your union. So we when we do have progress and have updates, we try to get them out to you as soon as possible. Okay, and we've got a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to scroll to the last slide. Just a reminder of our emails. Keith has put his number in the chat. I'll put mine in as well. Okay, and then again, if you're interested in the adjunct committee, feel free to email Bernadette, or yep, there she goes. We are super around if you need us for anything.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're out of time. Is that accurate? So, well, thank you all so much for being here. I really hope that this was informative. You'll be getting, I think, a link to give evaluations to us so that we can learn to do this better next time.
And to the presentation.
And to the presentation. And based on attendance, I think that we should make this a regular thing. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to offer this again in the spring. I also just want to take a really quick moment to thank our ASL interpreters. Really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. You do an awesome job.
Thank you, everyone. This is really helpful, and I'm glad this session was held this time. I wish we had something like this when I first started. This was incredibly helpful. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nora.
Thank you. All right, everybody, have a great Flex Day, and we will see you. Feel free to reach out anytime.